Thank you so much for being here and joining us. Yeah, we're launching this collective conversations as kind of a relaunch of our regular member talks and meetings. So you're the first one. And it's very timely because festival is a month away. So this was a great slot to get you into. And yeah, thanks for those of you tuning in. Shall we just start with a brief hello and what your role is, and then you can tell us about why you should do it despite it sounding daunting.
Yeah, kia ora koutou. I can kick off. So my name's Francesca Carney. I am the new regional manager for this year for Across Aotearoa, which of course is a new region that is combining pretty much all of New Zealand apart from Christchurch, Wellington, and Auckland. So it's exciting because all these teams can be able to compete against each other. She went to film school down in Christchurch, and then I moved to Wellington, where I've pretty much been ever since, working in TV and film. And at the moment, I'm producing a animated web series called Bloke of Apocalypse, which will be coming out in October. But yeah, I'm very much new to the 48 hours. I actually started off when I was in my early 20s, right when 48 hours first started. I was on a team with, I don't know if any of you know Dean Hewison. He's a director up in Wellington. He used to get a team together every year called Traces of Nut. And we used to have a mad time running around Wellington making films together. I think I did sound and all the random things that you wouldn't usually do when you're a production manager. Yeah, so that was a fun way to start, and definitely to meet people in the film industry in Wellington, and then that kicked off other parts of my career. But yeah, so I'm here for anyone that needs some advice. If I can't answer or support you, if you want to register for 48 hours, then I know I've got an amazing team with Ness and Ruth who I can ask. So that's kind of me for now.
Kia ora, I'm Ness Pātia. Been working for the 48 Hours and now part owner of the 48 Hours for about 7 or 8 years. Really passionate about the comp. Started as a contestant, like most of us did, as a participant, and did the comp for multiple years. Sort of was my introduction to filmmaking, actually. And now I'm on the other side where I'm running it. We are really excited about this year. Just every year, things get a bit more streamlined and a bit better. And Across Aotearoa is a new initiative that we feel like is going to, I don't know, just make it possible for people to network amongst the regions a bit better. Everyone's kind of was doing the comp in their isolated things, but just getting everyone into one regional pool should be really great, so everyone can kind of get to know each other's films and filmmakers and stuff. So we're excited about that change this year. We always make a little change, and that's the new change for this year. Cool. And that's me.
And kia ora, I'm Thomas, Thomas Capel. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm a Wellington-based producer and a writer. I am 4 years deep into being the Wellington regional manager, and I got to judge during lockdown, and that was really cool. But my first interaction with 48 Hours was I was a participant, and I've done it once, and I got disqualified. We was back in the days before there was digital pigeon, and you couldn't just upload online. It was also, for me, I scouted one of those teams off the back of a number of wins that they had in the competition. One year they won Best Female Director and Best Animation, and we springboarded off both the showreel that they had produced in prior years in the competition and those wins to then apply for funding for our first short film with the Film Commission. And we were successful in securing that short film funding because of the fact that we had a proven director who was able to resonate with an audience. And I'd also been working in production for a number of years. So there was but between 48 and the production experience that I was bringing, we were able to kind of show that we had the capacity to deliver a good film. And we then made that film, and that screened as part of NZ Best in 2016 at NZIFF and at 20 festivals around the world. And for us, unlocked the talent development pathway. So 48 was like the spark that ignited a pathway for both myself and those filmmakers. And now I'm like 10 years on, and I've just finished production on my first feature film, and that's currently in post-production at the moment. So it's like a perfect example of how the competition can be utilized as a testing ground, as a stress ground, like as a training ground, as a way to like get your work in front of an audience and really test it, and then to take that proof and apply it forward into actual industry work. That kind of a roundabout way of me saying this is who I am, and this is why I love 48, because it does that for people. It does that for a range of people. It's done it for, like we just talked about Fran and Ness, you know, it's done it for a huge number of filmmakers, and I'm excited for it to do it for the Southern Filmmakers Guild as well.
So it's, it can be just a fun wild weekend with friends. It can also be a real, reputable film festival with big hype to it. And the scale of it, I think, publicity you can get from being one of those big teams can have effects on your entire career. So
Yeah, Nuggets, who won last year, were just a first-time team from Hamilton, you know?
yeah, the festival always goes to show that, I say, production quality is in that festival not as important as, the heart of your storytelling. Should we just give a little spiel about how this new region situation came about and what kind of effects you hope it will have?
So the way it came about was sitting in Park Road Post movie cinema, looking up at the stars they've got in the sky, which is this Peter Jackson's little cinema. And I was just thinking about, I don't know why it hadn't occurred to me before, but we have a lot of satellite. We had one in Bay of Plenty, we had one in Gisborne, we had one in Taranaki, we had one in Hamilton, and one in Dunedin. And we sort of needed about 20 teams for them to actually get together. And then we ran heats in those regions and finals. And what we found is that we were putting a lot of resources into these places, but they felt quite random. For example, there was one in Gisborne and one not in Napier, and there was one in Dunedin and not in Queenstown or Invercargill. And each year we have to really push to get our funding. Let's just make that clear, because each year it's not guaranteed that the comp's going to run. And we do a lot of work to get the money in each year. So we were like, oh, fingers crossed we get enough funding. Sometimes we find out quite late in the piece. And this was a way of like, let's combine all these disparate regions and put the focus rather on these little individual towns on more of the country. So with this new structure we have created, we are going to have heats in more places. So we've got heats in Invercargill, and we've got heats in Napier, and we've got heats in Nelson and South Island. And so that's opened it up for people to get together, because we found people love that part, like getting together, seeing all the films that were made, not just the finalists. Yeah, so we trying to do those communities within all those towns. It's a lot because we're quite a small team, but we're managing to do it just because everyone works really hard. The final will be live streamed, which has its pros and cons. Obviously, you don't get that in-cinema experience. We're going to try and recreate that as much as possible on the live stream. But the one huge advantage of it is that the whole country will be tuning in, because it's the only live streamed final. So people from teams from Auckland, Wellington and Christchurch, as well as the rest of the country, and any overseas entrants will be able to watch that live stream. So we're thinking that's going to be really well attended. Obviously, it's first year, so we're going to take our learnings from it and apply them next year. And we're going to do feedback at the end of the year to make sure everyone's happy and what worked and what didn't. So that's kind of how it came about and what we're hoping to get out of it.
That's awesome. So it could have the effect of a lot more visibility and publicity for the regional.
Yeah, I think so. And also, like, Gisborne teams knew other Gisborne teams, but they didn't know the Dunedin teams. So I'm hoping they start to know each other as teammates across regions as well.
One of the most delicious and awesome things about this competition is the community, and is the camaraderie, and is the way like you get amongst and you learn the culture and you learn the teams, and like especially regionally, like everyone knows the Wellington teams, like they become legends. And so the beautiful thing for the Across Aotearoa region is your legends are across Aotearoa. You're not just condensed into your own hometown. They're like all across the motu. So you get to kind of spread nationally almost your star.
And it will be harder to get into the finals because there's more teams.
Yeah.
But it's also going to be way more kudos because there's more teams. So if you won the Across Aotearoa region, that's huge.
Yeah, and that has
There's more competition as well.
Yeah, it'll heat it up for sure. I think Dunedin, which was most of the South Islands region last year, had about 27 films. So, almost half of them got into the final, and then the award-winning teams were competing a lot less. So it didn't feel like as much, but we did get those award titles easier. So it's a balance up. So on assembling a team, how in a more isolated area where not as many filmmakers know each other can we try to connect up with people? And do you have to work with people you know? Or what is it like launching into 48 hours with random strangers? Can it be a good idea? Or is it better to take people you know?
I think you totally can like team up with randoms. Like that's probably a great way to meet people because it's great to know who is making stuff in your region and who's interested in your region. And I think it's like drawing on those regional networks that you have or those in-town networks that you have about who's about. And you might find surprising people in surprising places. And as you do that, that will build the entire region's capacity and like capability. Something else that I also like, because I understand that with the isolation as well, there comes the limitation about what you can actually achieve because you might not be able to find as many people. And I kind of have been, when I've been doing my talks, I have been giving like 3 main tips. And one of those tips is to lean into your limitations. So if you can't find someone who's a really great camera operator with a really flash camera, then make a film on your phone and lean into that limitation and let that be one of the things that you create as the ways in which you're going to utilize film to make something interesting. Because with really great performance craft and a really great directorial vision, you can make an amazing film on a phone. Those things that you don't have access to or the lack of numbers can sometimes create really great opportunities to innovate and do things in a really interesting way. I'd say as much as pull people together is that if you find you don't have things, lean into that and make good of it.
And you can be innovative as well in terms of distance. You can lean into it. You could have someone, you could be, 50 kilometers apart and potentially both go out and film things and then edit them together online. So you don't necessarily have to be in the same room. And also, you can hand that camera to your son or your daughter or your auntie. The person who holds the camera doesn't necessarily have to have ever held a camera before. There's a lot of families, particularly during lockdown that went and made films, and a lot of them had never ever made films before. The isolation for you talk about isolation, but actually I immediately think, oh my God, all those incredible landscapes. I mean, that in itself is such an amazing storytelling mechanism, your landscapes down there. We don't have that up here. Like pull into those beautiful places that you have, those are your characters just as much as a person.
On that, Fran, you've got your City Manager Award.
Oh, yes. So City Manager Award is going to be our best regional location because I just think there's so many places that, I think there's a plethora of opportunity out there in the regions, places that we haven't seen before. We so often see Auckland and Wellington and Christchurch and Queenstown, a lot of Queenstown, but, I haven't seen Invercargill on TV, so.
There's some cool spot, yeah, or Bluff next door, yeah.
And I also bring up the option of animation. I can see Ruby, I remember your film, Discombobulated Pistachios, was an amazing animation. So you still help that one up your sleeve as well. And you've got animation as well. Or a mix.
And we love our animated films. I personally think we don't have enough animated films. I'd love to see more. The beautiful thing, and it's almost, I'm bouncing around all the things that I give as tips because you've just drawn one out, but you can prep in advance. And what you were just talking about those locations is you can find those locations and see, like, find your point of difference and lock in that you're going to be there and build your 48 weekend around getting that really beautiful location that no one else has access to. And with animation, you can do exactly what a live action team will do. You can build your actors, you can build like your characters and your backgrounds so that you're basically writing your film within this space, this illustrated space that you've already created. So you're allowed to do that kind of thing, and there's nothing wrong. In fact, most films are all in the prep. Disqualified Tim made a submarine. He made an airplane. He built a world of miniatures. In another year, he trained an AI off his body.
Yeah. And you also use old footage that you have access to or you own, like old family footage or images that might be lying around in a shoebox. You can utilize all those that archival. You just have to make sure you have permission to use it.
Do you have any experience with like what kind of roles work remotely? Obviously, writer is quite obvious that you can have, a writer up late at night with you on a call working it out.
I mean, we've had actors as well. Like we've had one guy was doing a Zoom in his film, and he had a big beard at the beginning, and he shaved it off as he went, and then did put it in reverse. So it was like his beard was growing out as the film was going on. So yeah, that could be done over Zoom.
And also, lots of composers work remotely. Yeah, editors. You can have someone who's on the ground shooting something, or you could have an Across Aotearoa team with a bunch of people. Someone shooting something in Hamilton, someone shooting something in Dunedin, and then you pull it together into a film and an edit that's online. That's amazing.
That would be fantastic to see. Cool. And on teams, how important is having a singular leader of some kind, or can you kind of split leadership? Is that a discussion that you should have in advance?
I think you can definitely split leadership and share leadership and have the balance. But something that I've recently been I shared with Massey students today actually that I think that what their films last year needed was producers, and often that's something that's forgotten when you're doing 48, because that's people who want to make a film and direct a film. They forget what a producer provides, which is that structure and that person who's putting out the fires that you can focus on the creative craft. And so I think when you're talking about leadership, it's about thinking about who could be your producer. That is like also making sure you're fed, discussing that location, like replacing that last minute thing, coordinating the next location, making sure that the edit is going, making sure that you're delivering on time, ensuring you have a pipeline so that you have tested your export and you have a safety export and a safety delivery in case you don't deliver on time. It's like that person who's overseeing and singularly focused on that so that the director can be focused on making the film as beautifully and creatively as possible. I think a great team has that kind of person supporting a creative person.
I'd just like to bring up one anomaly to that, which is Couch Kumara in Wellington, and they have this equal hierarchy where they're all creative and they all direct it, but in saying that they've worked together for a long time. So they have a well-oiled machine. I call them film fit. So it can work in that everyone is being creative, but if you've never worked together before, I think you definitely want to have the conversation before we start. And it can go in any way, but just, get that out and give people roles if that's what people want.
The editor is often the person who, and the editor can often be the director as well, depending on how big your team is. A lot of the bigger teams will have their own editor. They're the ones that will be staying up Saturday night, long hours. So you have to make sure you've got someone who is open to doing that and is prepared to do that. That's usually what's required.
I think one of my own top tips is to have an editor who actually just starts as the footage comes in, selecting takes, assembling. You can start straight away and then it's much more relaxed. And in that case, you can shoot on the Sunday because everything's kind of set and you can put in a couple more new day takes if you like.
Our top tip as well is have 2 editors so that they can have shifts. If you've got that luxury, that's amazing. Just so someone can come in on Saturday, work right through. Someone can take over for Saturday through the night and then they can jump back on Sunday. That's actually more kind of humane. It's just that's like obvious scenario if you can do that.
Yeah, the old scenario.
And then the last and important part of the crew is your actors. What do you look for in your actors, when they're going to do something completely unpredictable?
Well, that's as like when we talk about leaning into those limitations, you lean into who you have, like because you get to write, shoot, and edit everything in 48 hours. You to those limitations that you have in front of you actually just become more ways in which you can find the story. Like if you're struggling with what you're doing or like what you're making, who you have around you or what you have accessible to you creates like clarity. Because if you have a cast of 50 people, it's so much harder to choose,
Yeah.
what you're going to feature. But it makes the decisions for you. Do not being afraid of that because limitations are actually a really good thing. Like most directors are like, no, I want everything. But it's like, no, you can, like limitations is a great space for discovery.
Yeah.
Couch Komura, who Ness was talking about before, they, as she said, they're all creatives and the writers were the lead actors, last year. So yeah, the people behind the camera are jumping in front of the camera as well.
One of my lessons from last year was make sure that they're actors who are used to learning lines very quickly and on the fly. Otherwise, spend a lot of time trying to coach them into just remembering.
Yeah, whoever you have writing for, so that they can actually
Don't give giant chunks to, people who can't handle it on the day.
In terms of working with children as well, I just want to bring up that they are amazing on camera and so natural, and that can be a really beautiful thing. But just really schedule them in for a short amount of time, because kids just like lose it. So like make your whole film pinned on a child. That's just not really fair on the child. If you could pull it off, it's cool. But yeah, we just try to stick with like keeping children.
Keeping up some industry standards. Yeah, would we say lock in some actor options in advance?
Yeah.
Have, those chats with them about what they're willing to do maybe, and then have them on call.
And equally, like with lines and learning lines and improv, being a director that gives your talent space to find the scenes, like sometimes expecting them to hit every beat is not the right way to get the best performance. It's like allowing your actors the chance to find their way through the scene in their own time might almost more efficient way. That's actually how a lot of fast turnaround comedy television gets made, or fast turnaround television, is that you have an actor, you have all your actors kind of know the beginning, middle, and end of a scene, and they work themselves through it.
Yeah. What are you trying to say rather than what are the exact words?
Yeah. What do you want the audience to feel was a big one.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's a huge one, rather than focus so much on yourself. It's like, what are you trying to make the audience feel? It's like everyone around you, on set, how you're making them feel, because that's kind of the point of this. Like, what's the point of the scene? And then they just go for it.
Specific advice for our region that I would just chip in is for finding actors, hit up your local theatre groups in advance. Most of those small towns have got their theatre troupes. Put out a bit about yourself and then get a few people on call, maybe have a chat to them on the phone beforehand, and go to our talent agency websites and, filter by where people are, and then maybe take some people you like the look of and track them down on Facebook and Instagram and ask them to join you. So do remember that, there's a lot of people on our talent agent websites down here who have been extras and whatever.
Well, it could be a teacher at the school who's quite sort of, vivacious, or the dairy owner who's just got the most amazing character face, You could play just like a cameo role and as a dairy, like thinking outside the box as well. You don't have to have professional actors or people that are, or sometimes the best performances come from those surprising places.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or come from real places like Video Shop last year, who were runner-up in Wellington. Their person won Best Actor. She wasn't a trained actor. She was just someone with a really amazing face and a really amazing presence that they put on screen and coached through the performance, and she did brilliantly.
We do have solo duo, which, we came up with that award because people were wanting an extra challenge. Oh, the one thing that's great about solo duo is that you don't have to ask anyone what they think. You can just get it done. But yeah, on saying that, you've got a lot more tasks, and I would just say have a lot of food around, and maybe make your film shorter than 5 minutes so that it's not as intense. Because honestly, some of the better films are closer to the 4.5 minute mark.
Yeah, no pressure to be 5 minutes, and it causes a lot of stress to try and cut it down to 5 minutes. Your 5-page script is probably not 5 minutes.
Yeah.
This is my biggest problem. How do you settle on an idea before bloody 2, 3 a.m.?
Oh man, that is a good.
When you're in a team, you got, it might be too many cooks in the kitchen, right? If you've got 4 people trying to do something.
Have a final decision maker, and that's where it's really important that you, like, it is actually quite, like, unless you have a really well-refined way of making decisions, like, those roles are really helpful in setting who is making the final call. Like, if a writer is the writer, then they're writing the script. If the director, then they might make some slight tweaks to the script, but actually their job is actually to realize what's on the page, you know? So it's like, and the producer, often the producer's the deal breaker, They're the ones that make the final decision because what can be achieved, So choose that person who makes that decision when you're at odds, and just go with that, and just accept that that's part of the filmmaking process, is that sometimes you do have to compromise, and it's okay.
And you maybe need someone who's a bit of a dreamer, and then a person who's a reality checker. That kind of.
Yeah, the way we usually, well, I've done 48 hours in the past, is actually just write a schedule up for the whole weekend. So it's the whole thing is the time constraint. So we usually go from 7 till maybe 9 or 8 or something, is just the brainstorm with the entire team. And everyone throws all their ideas in, and then you decide on an idea at a certain point in the night, like maybe at 8:30 or 9. And then the writer and the director or whoever it is goes off in a much smaller thing and starts to write the thing. You just have to call it at some point, because the brainstorm process can go on for ages. Your schedule's a really good idea. And when you're really tired, you can be like, oh, should I have picture lock yet? Well, you just say picture lock at 12 at midday on Sunday is like your good goal, because then if you're going to do any music, sound effect, credits, anything you want to do, you need that amount of time to get color grade. You want to do all the polishing, 12 o'clock's a good time for picture lock on Sunday. This song should be fun, not like too serious, And I feel like the people that usually do well have had a real blast.
I'm really excited to see what's going to come from Across Aotearoa. I really am.
So prep, everything's in the prep. What can you do in advance? You can check your gear, you can find some locations, find your people. How much can you kind of restrict your story parts, your elements?
I think it's like, as much as you want to kind of you want to have the ability to brainstorm and find your story, right? But you can kind of hone in, and limitations are good. Like, if you limit yourself, I think that's probably going to make your life a lot easier. But if you have like this boundless thing, but then you might get a genre that you never expected, and elements that you never expected to include, and you want to have enough flexibility that you can integrate them naturally in a way that's not going to completely disrupt your flow. So you want to prep enough that you have like a safety blanket around you, but not too much, so that you're not responsive to the joy of discovery and the joy of kind of adapting to those prompts, inspiration that comes from that, because you'll find an even better film. And that's actually filmmaking in general. Like, when you're going through the weekend and things are going wrong and your scene's not happening exactly as you envisaged it, if you fight that, it's actually likely to not actually get any better. But if you lean into that discomfort and you kind of find what it actually is in front of you, you'll get a better outcome, because you're like riding the wave of it. Because filming is just like putting out lots of fires, and it is like constant firefighting. You do got to fight the fire, but you could also just like fall into it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point of the comp. Like, this isn't you get a script funded and you make a film. You can do that any other day of the week. But this competition is, the whole point is that you're responding and it's spontaneous. So, and that it's a good time, and something will come out of it that you never expected. So you definitely, like, people do it with no prep, and that's also fine. I definitely say have a base and have some snacks as the minimal prep. Yeah, and charge your batteries would be another one. But you can, do prep, but I wouldn't prep story in general. I'd have some actors, some locations, but I wouldn't be thinking about story at all, because that's the whole fun of the weekend.
Yeah, you don't
Yeah.
know film that's kind of that you can tell has been pre-planned and then forced into whatever genre it's supposed to.
Exactly. Because we've got those things that come in, you know if someone's legitimately subverting genre or if someone's trying to like ham fist things.
So, yeah, you need your base HQ.
And testing your workflow. So like going through the process of shooting a thing, editing that thing together, exporting that thing and delivering that thing and seeing how long all of that takes so that you're not surprised at like 6 p.m. at night that you're not going to have your film in time. You know, you're not going to deliver and then you're spontaneously disqualified. So like actually working through that technical workflow so you know everything's going to work and you're not kind of shocked by anything at the end of the process, because that's kind of like the worst nightmare. That happens a lot with teams. Like they call in and panic 6 p.m. on the Sunday going, oh, my thing's not like exporting fast enough. And there's nothing we can do at that point because they just haven't like tested their own pipeline. And so I would say do that too. So you actually understand your technical limitations and what it's going to take.
On the computer that you're going to use.
Maybe do a quick low res export as safety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can see the exact time the upload started at our end. So, if your upload's taking 3 hours, don't stop it if you started it before the time. At our end, we've got really great software. So if it's just your slow internet, then just leave it open and make sure your computer's plugged in.
Yeah. Keep it very much in touch with the SFC community because we, if there's enough people to get together and just watch something on someone's TV at home. Last year we had maybe 12 in a room in Queenstown watching, doing our own live streams. So just because there's no official heat in your city doesn't mean that we won't kind of.
Yes, you guys are going to totally get together. And we can group films by region as well. So, heat, sorry. So if there's a bunch from Queenstown, we just let us know and we can group them together.
Yeah, brilliant. We had 2 teams in Queenstown last year, which is pretty small considering how many kind of commercial filmmakers there are. So
Yeah.
we'll try and rally them. Yeah, in Chicago, hoping SIT. But there's a bit of a shortage of the school teams here. So if anyone does have a link up to a school, you can always be their little school supervisor.
Encourage them because there's a whole bunch of information on the website as well. There's a bunch of like NCA credits that they can earn, and really for students as much as anything, like it's an opportunity to like experience being given a brief in a really short time frame and having to deliver to that and be creative within that and like band together as a team. So it's a great like exercise for a group of young people. And if those schools have like media teachers, it's like a great thing to kind of anchor a NCA assessment on too. Or if they're competing, there's a lot of those students are already competing in on screen as well, who are one of our friends, one of our fellow comps, and it's those students that are making on screen films could also be using 48 as like a sprint, as a test of their teamwork and also some ideas that they want to apply to those films that basically longer on, or they could submit their films 48 for on screen. So there's like all these opportunities for them. Very happy to speak to any students, any kind of media teachers, any classrooms.
Do you guys have any genres that you are excited about or scared of?
Oh, man.
See, everybody is scared of musical. I think that is a terrifying prospect.
Yeah, that's where your little theatre company people will come in well because they're okay getting on a stage and doing that.
Every year it's a mixed bag. So sometimes it's new, sometimes we rehash ones we've done before that, people have enjoyed. We usually have about 10, so that's quite a lot, and 3 to 4 elements. And one of those is normally a technical element, like we've had sound elements and camera shots and different things. Yeah, and the other thing that we've changed is in the past we used to have very specific things like, oh, this character is called this and they've got this character trait and they're going to say this line of dialogue. We've moved a bit away from that because what we noticed is the films were sort of coming through and that they were sticking out like sore thumbs, those elements. So we've gotten much more natural kind of elements that you can put into your film without it sticking out so much. And then we were also making them far more open to interpretation. So there's no right or wrong when you get an element. If you can think of a way to treat it that's a bit unusual, it's a good idea, because the most obvious way, like we had a puddle one year, everyone stepped in a puddle in there for a shot. Yeah, so if you can kind of subvert or just have fun with that element, we're not going to say that's incorrect. As long as you can put a time code of where you've got it in your film, that's the main thing.
And as long as you justify it, as long as you have your justification for how that element has been used or how your genre is your genre, because it's also, speaking of our wonderful community, like they like to make calls on when something is the genre or not, or whether it should have been disqualified. But actually, like, we embrace subverting genre. Like last year there was some controversy around like a sort of change use of the splatter genre. I'm like, that was splatter in their way.
I mean, the point of them is just to say that you've made it in the weekend and just spark creativity. It's not for us to be jail keepers. So,
So don't stress too much about if
Yeah.
genre is something you want to kind of switch up a bit.
And in fact, if you want to switch it up, that's awesome. Like, that will be so
we'll
good.
probably get awards for it if you switch it up. We're looking for different treatments.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, that's very encouraging.
What we've noticed that's come through last year, and we've sort of just identified this as like two groups of films. So we get these really tight comedy skits that are funny, and that's kind of a style. And then we get these really arty films that are quite surreal and interesting and experimental. So we've noticed that the films kind of mostly fit into those two categories.
And some ride between them. And like I think the third thing that I've been like really encouraging filmmakers to think about is in regards to their story, and is in regards to like turning it up and thinking of it in that way. Like, the things that make those things great is that underneath their really good plots or their really good stories is something that they're trying to say. And so it's like thinking about what you're saying with your film, and like having a point of view and having a perspective that immediately like elevates it and like brings it to a level that is more likely to make someone feel something and resonate with it. And it immediately like turns it up in terms of its quality. And I think that's also the difference between the winners and the teams that just kind of do well, is they've all got something to say.
I would also just bring up on that point is short film versus feature film. So we notice in the 48 hours people watch a lot of feature films and they don't watch as much short films. So they usually, when they go to have their idea, there's like so many story beats. And really in a short film, it's more of a moment than a whole feature film. So we try to remind people of that, just to keep their ideas simple, because doing simple well is better than being too complex and complicated. And when people do that, you lose your audience, because sometimes you need a whole feature film to tell a big idea. So yeah, just focus on it being more of a moment with something to say. I would
Go and binge some short films. Some past 48 hours and some, top YouTube, some award-winning ones, just to remind yourself what a 5-minute film is, I think, because it's 5 minutes. It's not 14 here.
Yeah. And Vimeo's got some great content on there too.
And definitely check out last year's kind of ones from this region for a little bit of local inspiration. You can refine the viewing room on the 48 Hours website by the area. So, and yeah, keep in touch with the SFC. Like, we're here to try and help you find collaborators. So if you want me to post in the Facebook group pitching you, I'm very happy to. And use the chats in our group, and don't be afraid to put yourself out there.
I would say, what have you got to offer when you put yourself out there? Like, it could be, I have a ute, or I've got a great location, or I've got triplet, brothers, or whatever whatever it is like, say the things that make you valuable for a team, so people can actually connect with that.
Oodles of enthusiasm.
Even that, or I can make a great lasagna.
You can work off limited sleep. Yeah, everyone's got something to bring when it's something like 48 hours,
Yes.
It's
SIT is a bit of a hub this year, so that's great you've mentioned that, Ruby. That will be really cool to like talk about a bit more. And we still have Community Love, which I just wanted to pitch as well. So that's for groups working with youth or charitable groups working in that space, and we can do completely free registrations for Community Love. Yeah, so that's still out there, and we'll keep that going till the end. So if you know anyone that qualifies for that, send it through.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Thomas and Ness, for joining us, for your time, for this great little chat, and thanks, folks, for tuning in. This won't be the last you hear of 48 Hours in the next few weeks. And if you do end up doing it, please, share what you're up to with our little community.
Yes, and tag us on social media over the weekend, because I'm like, I'll break the internet on that weekend, sharing everyone.
The longest stories you've ever seen will be the 48 Hours Instagram, I guess.
Also, just saying that in particular, I'm really excited about the Southern filmmakers. I am a seventh generation New Zealander with my whakapapa going back to Otago and Alexandria, where I still have a rally.
You'll like up in Olamaro, so.
Nice. All right, fabulous. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a lovely rest of your night.